In this lecture, which is the last lecture, I will be telling you about final finishing operations. You know, from the ore, iron ore, we cast steel through several successive methods. Casting, we did rolling, and we got the product for a particular application. Now, the final finishing operations are needed in order to generate or create a property that is required for a particular application. So, in fact, the objective, of final finishing operations are to generate or create mechanical property or properties as required for a particular applications. Now, what mechanical properties are we looking? For example, strength. Strength. This is the measure of the resistance of material, to permanent deformation, That is, we are looking a product which should have high strength or should have high ductility. What is ductility? The ductility is a measure of the plastic deformation, that has been sustained till fracture, at fracture. That is what the property we are looking for. Or hardness, resistance to localized plastic deformation. These are some of the properties, mechanical properties of I listed, some of the corrosion properties, some of the whatever properties you require for your application. In order to get those properties, final finishing operations are being done. The requirements are enormous. There are requirements for low-tech industry, for example, construction industry, to SIS for the high-tech industry, that is the aircraft applications. So, accordingly, the finishing operations are to be carried out in order to generate or create that property. Now, the question that comes to my mind, how I can generate or create a required property in a material. I want a soft material, what should I do? I want a hard material, what should I do? I want a ductile material, I want a corrosion resistant material, what should I do? Because the product which I am getting from the rolling mill, it does not meet my requirement. So, what should I do? Or rather, in what way I should think, or what should be my direction of thinking in order to create or generate that property. Now, mind you, I am using the term create or generate. That means, there must be something which can lead to creation or generation of a particular property. How to get that? Easiest way to get that, you open a material and see what the material consists of. With that I mean, I put before you 4 steel samples and I say one is hard, one is soft, one is brittle, another is ductile. Can you tell me from the external appearance which is hard, which is soft, which is ductile, which is brittle? Unless I tell you this is this, this is this, this is this, this is, you cannot tell just by seeing the material. Then how to create or how to generate or how to know to induce a particular property? As I have said just before, you have to open the material. What does it mean? You have to open the material, you have to polish it, you have to etch it, and you have to see under the microscope. All of you have gone through a course on phase diagram and phase transformation. You can appreciate. If I open the material, I polish it and I see under the microscope, that could be optical or could be scanning or whatever the microscope may be, then you will be confronted with a different type of structures in the material. And if you analyze those structures, you will get a clue. The property which you are looking for is generated through the phases that are present in the material. So, what I want to say from here, that a property or an individual property that is required for a particular application, it depends upon the phases which the material consists of. In short, if you see the microstructure, you will find it consists of grains. It consists of grain boundaries. There could be small size grains and larger grain boundaries. There could be larger size grains, but smaller grain boundary. There could be different phases. The distribution of phases could be different. The morphology of the phases could be different. So, if I combine all the inside story of the material, that is after seeing under the microscope, and if I apply to the iron carbon system, then I get the following picture. The type of phase, number of phase, size and size distribution of phases, size and size distribution of phases, and morphology they constitute the required property in a given material. If I see now the iron carbon system, remember in my first lecture I have told you that iron carbon is a unique system to which steel belongs. It is unique in the sense it has a capability to have some solubility for element and create that property. Now, I will show you how it can be done. If I see now the equilibrium phase diagram of iron carbon, I notice there are two phases are present at room temperature. Austenite is a high temperature phase. So, at room temperature, I have ferrite plus cementite. Ferrite is ductile. Cementite is harder and brittle than ferrite, and brittle than ferrite. Ferrite is ductile. Increasing the proportion of cementite in a material, what will it do? It will make the steel more harder and brittle. So, here itself I am getting a clue that if I vary the proportion of cementite in a simple iron carbon phase diagram, I can get different type of materials. Now, imagine if I change the morphology of the cementite. Imagine I change the size of the phases. I change the number of phases. By some manipulation, if I am able to generate more number of phases, then very different properties I can produce it. So, let us see what are the number of phases or types of phases that can be obtained in an iron carbon system. So, I am listing. First phase, let us say spheroidite. This consists of small Fe3C spheres in alpha ferrite. What I have done, I am simply modifying the morphology of cementite, getting a phase spheroidite, and this phase property is soft and ductile. Soft and ductile. So, this is the property of a phase, and this is how it consists of. Then you must have heard perlite. So, there is a coarse perlite, and the coarse perlite have alternate thick layers of ferrite and cementite. This is altogether a different type of phase. This is harder and stronger than spheroidite. I can further change the morphology. Say I can get fine perlite. Now, in fine perlite, alternative thin layers of ferrite and cementite. That means cementite is in thin layers, in ferrite. Now, this hardness and strength, hardness and strength they are greater than coarse perlite. Then another phase I can get which is called bainite. The bainite is very fine. In bainite you have very fine and elongated particles. It is a very special structure of Fe3C in alpha ferrite matrix. Now, this phase bainite has hardness and strength. Hardness and strength. It is greater than fine perlite. It is greater than fine perlite, but at the same time this phase has ductility, which is greater than martensite. Greater than martensite. Still another phase I can have, that is the martensite. Martensite is a body center tetragonal phase, all of you know, is a single phase, needle shaped, needle shaped. This is strong and hard, and ductility is very poor. Then I can again get another phase which is tempered martensite. Tempered martensite. Now here very small Fe3C sphere like particles, in alpha ferrite matrix. Now this particular tempered martensite has ductility greater than martensite. Now you see what I have illustrated over here. I have shown you this. These are the type and number of phases that can be obtained in an iron carbon system. Don't you imagine that in iron carbon system it provides a very large possibility to create the material of different properties. All that you should know the application, and with 100% confidence I can tell there is a material which is steel. So that is what the importance of the steel as a material, because it provides a very large number of possibilities to create a particular property which is required for a particular application, and that you can see these are the number of phases. Now you see, now at 7 or 8 number of phases. Now I can vary the size, I can vary the distribution. Also one of the phase that I have not listed is the austenite. It is the high temperature phase, but as I have said that because of the uniqueness of iron carbon system, it has some solubility for an element. You can always find an element in the periodic table which can retain austenite at room temperature, and you can utilize the ductility of austenite in order to create a very different type of material. So summarizing, what I want to say is that it is these number of phases, their size distribution, their morphology, if one can change them, then one can obtain a very different type of material. Now just to show about the property, for example, I just plot schematically. Say for example, I take here say a composition, say weight percent carbon, it varies from 0 to 1, and here I take for example hardness. I take hardness, then for say spheroidite, this is hardness is the minimum, and then if you go for coarse perlite, this is for the coarse perlite, and on the top you have fine perlite. That is what I have said also. So this is how the mechanical property vary. Now if I take ductility, for example, if I plot here now, this scale is same composition weight percent carbon, I take here ductility. It will be reverse of this plot. Say spheroidite will have the maximum ductility, spheroidite, then followed by coarse pearlite, and this is followed by fine pearlite. What I mean to say, naturally hardness and ductile, they do not go together. If a material is very hard, then it will be less ductile. If the material is not that hard, it will be more ductile. Now also, if you can see some other phases, for example, if I plot here the Brinell hardness number against composition, then martensite is the hardest phase, that is the martensite. Then this will be tempered martensite, and this will be fine pearlite. Now those are interested in more detail, they can look down to a book, W.D. Callister. I have given the reference in the end, but still I will give you here, Material Science and Engineering. Now with this presentation, what I wanted to say is very simple, that if you want to create a given property for a given application, the application could be anything at the moment. All that you should know what for you want to use that material. Then the iron carbon system, it provides a very large number of possibility to create a property by permutation and combination of the phases which I have listed over here. You can see there is a very large permutation and combination, and if you include into that permutation and combination, size of the phase also becomes one of the important tool to manipulate the property in a material, whether it is for low tech industry or whether it is for high tech industry. So now possibly you are convinced from my statement of the first lecture that iron carbon, it is a unique system to which steel belongs. It has a unique property of alloying with several elements, and that is what I meant over here. With this, what I want to say is that all that you should have an application in your mind. My dear friend, you will have before you steel as a material. Now all that is required, and that a question must be coming into your mind, how can I generate these properties? What are the ways in which these properties can be generated? Or it is just simple, I presented and there is no ways there. No, there are ways. These distribution of phases can be obtained, and now these properties I can classify into three types of operations. One is the surface finishing operations. Surface finishing operation, that is where for some applications require only surface property are to be modified. And second is the heat treatment. And third is the deformation processing. These are the three different technologies which can be used to proportion the number, size and size distribution, morphology of the phases to obtain a material for a particular application. Now, in short, I will take first, for example, surface finishing operations. That is, in fact, they are called surface hardening. So, first I will take, for example, surface hardening. Now, surface hardening consists of two parts. One is a thermochemical surface hardening. Now, one of the important requirement in order to apply these technologies is to heat the steel so that at the heating temperature the steel should have single phase, and the temperature at which the steel will be in a single phase on heating, that one can find out from the phase diagram, and which depends on the carbon content. I want to say with this that the steel is to be heated so that it comes in the single phase region, and that is the austenite, from where the transformation to the different phases begin. So, one is the thermochemical surface hardening, and in this composition of steel surface is altered. Composition of steel surface is altered and is then hardened with or without quenching. That is all that you require to heat to the austenitic temperature, and from here there you can quench, or you can anneal in the air, or depending on the hardness you require. Composition of the steel surface is altered and is hardened by quenching or some other treatment. So, here you have say austenitic type, or you have ferritic type. The austenitic type, they are known as, for example, carburizing. Carburizing is one such method. Carbonitriding is another method. Then cyaniding is another method. In one case you introduce carbon, for example, in carburizing, in carbonitriding, carbon and nitrogen, and so on. In the ferritic type, it consists of one is nitriding. Then you have nitrocarburizing. Now, here in this particular austenitic type, the non-metallic elements, usually carbon, singly or in combination with nitrogen, are diffused into the austenitic phase. That is why we call them, they are the austenitic type thermochemical surface hardening method. That is, carbon and nitrogen, they are diffused into the austenitic phase. In the ferritic type, the carbon or carbon plus nitrogen are diffused into the ferrite phase. That is why we call them as a ferritic type of thermochemical surface hardening. Now, another is a thermal surface hardening. Thermal surface hardening. Now, in the thermal surface hardening, heat alone is used to alter the microstructure without altering the composition. That is, you locally heat it, you require heating, and heating can be done either by induction or flame hardening. You know, induction is very localized heating, or flame hardening, or you can direct the flame at the part which requires to be heated up. So, induction or flame hardening. Induction or flame hardening. Another type of thermal surface hardening could be done, or by heating could be done, laser or electron beam hardening. Now, the idea of thermal surface hardening is to heat the localized surface only, such that you form austenite to a controlled depth, which is then quenched in water or oil or forced air to produce hard martensite phase. As I have said in the beginning, in order to alter the number of phases, size distribution morphology and so on, the technology begins first to heat the steel to a single phase region, and in most cases that is the austenite, that is the single phase. It is from there, depending on the rate of cooling, the different type of phases can be generated. So, here in the thermal surface hardening, where heating is done to a controlled surface, so care is taken that only that controlled surface is transformed to austenite, because you want only surface hardening, and depending on the hardness that is required, you have to quench it. If you quench in water, quench in oil, quench in forced air, you get a varying degree of hardness in the steel. So, that is what this surface hardening method. Now, the advantages over thorough hardening method is advantages over through hardening. The one advantage is that reduction in distortion, elimination of cracking, and elimination of cracking, especially in large components. Second, fatigue life, and fatigue strength. Fatigue life and fatigue strength are increased due to compressive stresses in the outer layers. Third, a high wear resistant surface is produced. A high wear resistant surface is produced. These are the advantages of surface hardening method. Fourth, selected areas can be hardened. Selected areas can be hardened. Now, say these are some of the surface hardening methods. So, next important technology is deformation processing. In the deformation processing, you have to apply the load, or you have to deform the material. So, you have as such cold working and hot working. Cold working is done below recrystallization temperature, hot working is done above recrystallization temperature. Advantages of cold working: no heating is required. No heating is required. Better surface finish, better surface finish and dimensional control can also be achieved. Then strength, fatigue and wear properties are improved, and wear properties are improved. Then directional properties can be imparted. Directional properties can be imparted. Directional properties can be imparted. Some of the disadvantages: heavier forces are required. Heavier forces are required because you are working in the cold stage. Then strain hardening may occur. Strain hardening may occur, and this strain hardening requires then to anneal them to relieve the material from stresses. Then some residual stresses may be produced. Some residual stresses may be obtained during the cold working operation, and if care is not taken, then one may have a problem in the application stage. Now, as regards the hot working, heating is required, but natural there is no need to write. Heating is required, but there are certain advantages associated with the hot working. Hot working, it does not produce strain hardening, does not produce strain hardening. Hot working can be used to drastically alter the shapes without fear of fracture and excessive high forces, because you don't need to apply high forces. Then at elevated temperatures, what can happen? The diffusion processes are accelerated, and as a result, if certain pores are there, certain inhomogeneities in the material is there, they can also be reduced. So, that means chemical inhomogeneities, can be reduced pores can also be welded up or reduced in size during deformation. Then the dendritic structure, dendritic grain structure, small gas cavities, shrinkage porosity formed during solidification in large sections can be modified during hot working to produce a fine randomly oriented spherical shaped grains, which results in better properties. Then hot working also results in reorientation of inclusions. I will just put in short, reorientation of inclusions. Now, one of these important requirements for cold working to be successful is that the stress strain diagram of the material should show a high strain for a particular stress. That means the material should be ductile and easily deformable. If the material is brittle, then there is a limited amount of force that can be applied under cold conditions. There are several operations for cold working as well as hot working: rolling, extrusion, then sheet metal working, hot rolling. All these are the operations, and you can study them and see that you know it. Another important technology, as I said, is the heat treatment. Now, heat treatment consists of heating and then cooling. Heating to what temperature? The foremost requirement for surface finishing operation or for the bulk finishing operation is to heat the material to a single phase range, that is the austenity temperature. So, the heat treatment operation consists of heating the material to the austenitic range, and from there it is cooled at a different rate. And there are several type of heat treatment procedures. One is the annealing, where you heat and cool the material in furnace itself. Then another treatment is normalizing. You heat the material again to the austenitic range and cool in air. And third is quenching. Here material is heated again to the austenitic range, then it is rapidly cooled in water. So, in all the three methods, there will be different phases will form. Of course, it will depend upon the carbon content also. In between this, you can have the several modified practices for heat treatment. For example, one is Marr tempering. Then Aus tempering. Because you want to get a phase bainite to make use of the properties of the bainite, for their Aus tempering is done. Then also tempering is done. Say after quenching, large amount of stresses are induced in the material, then the stresses are to be relieved, and for that purpose the material is reheated. So, these are some of the technologies that belong to heat treatment. Now, I will like to give you certain questions and references. Here are the questions for self-assessment. What is the difference between plane front and dendritic solidification? Explain. I had already explained. I don't think now you want any explanation from me. Second, explain constitutional supercooling. What is the importance in relation to solidification of steel melt? Third, discuss the solidification of killed and rimming steel in an ingot mold. Well, you have to tell here how both types of ingot solidifies, a pipe formation, blowhole and so on. It would be better if you answer the question by drawing sketches. Why is there formation of pipe during solidification of killed steel in ingot during ingot casting practice? How pipe formation can be controlled? What is rimming? And next question, explain the difference between ingot and continuous casting. That is, I have said already. Seventh question, with the help of a neat sketch, describe the process of continuous casting steel. Try to draw a sketch. Write short notes on the following. Well, that has been said. Ninth question is that you are continuously casting slab of cross section 200 into 2000 millimeter at 2 meter per minute speed. Now you are required to cast at 4 meter per minute casting speed to cater the enhanced capacity of hot strip mill. What technological modifications are needed to be done? Discuss. I have taken an example. Now this question you can modify with the discussion that we have, and you can provide the answer here. What is the principle of creating different mechanical properties on steel? Name the methods to achieve them. Right now I discussed, and these are the references for further reading to strengthen your knowledge. So with this, I want to end my lecture by telling, in fact I will be repeating my few sentences of my first lecture. There I have said that steel belongs to iron carbon system, and iron carbon system has a unique property, and now you have seen the uniqueness of iron carbon system. And believe me or not, it is the creation of the nature. Nature has made iron to be magnetic so that it is ductile at room temperature. Otherwise, it would have been hexagonal plex, closed packed structure. Don't you think it is a wonder of the nature? Another that I want to say is that, as I have said also, steel provides enormous application oriented development of the materials. On the top of it, nature has also given steel, or nature has also made steel to be recyclable. My dear friends, I conclude the lecture by telling steel is a green material. Thank you.